we're back. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about just doing some articulations, talking about Kelly's, or our, I guess, vertical jig system. So basically, I started this fly on an O'Shaughnessy hook and a number 6. I've got 2 or 3 clumps of Marabou that I've kind of preened up a little bit and tied onto this back hook. And now we're going to talk about how we're joining these articulated flies. A lot of different ways to do it. Gosh, back in the day, you know, there wasn't much information, so we kind of made it up on our own. So this is a bug basically modified off of a Ken Burkholder Eldon Barrett bug called the Warrior. That was just a little teeny Marabou jig like this. We're going to articulate it. A good friend of mine, Jason Pruitt, you know, calls this fly the Mr.wiggles. But back in the day, in the old 23-foot comfort trailer in Swan Valley, we figured out how to do this. So we're going to join with some backing, just 30-pound backing. But the problem that you have with these is the time consumption of trying to figure out how to thread that through and get it through. We want to do both pieces, you know, we want this through and then looped on itself. So anyway, in short, we're going to take a bobbin threader, standard bobbin threader from Hairline, and we cut it, just one side. And this is so you can get your bobbin threader back out when you're done. So I'm just going to poke the bobbin threader up through the hook. Now I'll put my 30-pound backing through the bobbin threader in roughly the midpoint. And now I'll just pull that back through. That gets both pieces through there. And now I can take it off by cutting that bobbin. Now we're just going to do a simple loop. I personally like backing a little bit better for my personal flies. I think they swim better than wire or shanks, but they all have their place. So now we've got our backing on there. Now I want to put these beads on here. The articulation beads are nice because they add a little hot spot, but they also stiffen up the backing and give us a little gap. So we're just going to take a glass bead, and instead of trying to thread those beads onto these 2 pieces of backing, we're going to do 3 of them. I'm going to do 3 of these glass beads onto my bobbin threader, just onto that tip section. And now make a little room for it. And now we're going to put the 2 pieces of backing through that end, and now we're going to pull our beads right onto that, and that just threads them right onto that backing. Whoa, lost that, but I saved it. And now we have our beads on that back section. Okay, so take that one out. Usually I'll prep a bunch of those. And now we'll take a bigger O'Shaughnessy. I believe this one is a 2, and I put a cone on this. Like I said, we're looking for vertical jigging. We're fishing these on dry lines. So we've got a 6/0 waxed. And we're going to get our thread base on this front hook. I like to try to get these to ride hook eye up, but not critical. They're probably going to move around a little bit. So with that in mind, this fly will ride like this. So I'll want to put my extension in right here. So I'll just lay that. I'm going to get rid of one of those beads for this bug. A little shorter. I'm just going to lay that right along the side. Cream side on the bottom, olive side on top. And get a couple loose wraps in here. Back towards the back. And I'm coming off the straight part of the shank, and I'm just going to pull those tight so I don't have a whole bottom slip, but I'm still going to get that movement. Now we're going to go ahead and secure our backing onto what will be the bottom of the hook. Come forward, and I'll come all the way up to behind that bead, or that cone, excuse me. Wind this back, and now, you know, we'll do a little safety first on here, a little zap. And now we're going to put our clouser cones in. move these back just a little bit. We're wanting this to jig. 10 wraps on one side or so. Equal amount of wraps with equal pressure on my side. Doing X wraps here. And this fly drops like a rock. This was the OG, you know, before we had met Kelly. Started seeing all the dirty name flies. We fished the Mr.wiggles with great success for quite a while. Got my eyes on top, which will be the bottom. Now I'll pull that 30-pound backing both strands over and I'll lock that in. Now we have a pretty secure articulation there. I'm not worried about that coming apart on the size of fish that Brandon catches. Different size of fish that I catch, but just kidding. Okay, so we have our frame. This baby's gonna ride like so. It's gonna get a lot of movement. It's got a lot of weight on the head. But once again, this is just very simple Marabou stuff. The key here is showing you how we do the articulation with that cool little tool, modified tool. All right, so I've got a little bit more Marabou here, and we're just stacking Marabou. This fly has 0 body. We're not building up a dubbed body or body wrap body. We're just putting Marabou on this. Go ahead and lay that over so it matches. And we'll get a few securing wraps on top. I'm going to flip this hook over. Obviously, Renzetti Traveler is the best vise on the planet, but any rotary vise is going to be really helpful when doing, you know, these top-bottom two-tone flies. What I'm looking for is, in this piece of Marabou here, I've got all individual fibers, but I have that one stem down the center. That could foul on us. So I'm just going to come in and cut that little teeny center piece out. Now I have nothing but individual Marabou fibers that are just going to set right through that hook. Whoa, there's a hook in there. Same thing, I'm going to just preen some of that Marabou clump back so it covers my joint. I mean, there's a hook on there. Good idea is to put a little cap on these. If you're tying a bunch of them, you'll end up bleeding to death, which I probably will by the end of this one anyway. And secure it. We'll clean this one up a little bit when we're done. We're not looking for perfect bug here. As far as, you know, what it looks like in the vise, we're more concerned with how it fishes, how it's going to move. Alright, now we'll do another piece of Marabou here on the front of this. Just a touch shorter. Like I said, nothing for the body on this, just, you know, 7 or 8 stacks of Marabou. Go ahead and pull that Marabou leftover forward just to cover up that eye. Make use of some of that extra waste material. Now we'll flip her back over. Kelly's latest book. Lucky enough to kind of get a mention in there. Jason and I started fishing with Kelly years ago, and you know, it was kind of cool to meet somebody that was as twisted in the brain as we were at the time. And this was the fly we introduced him to, you know, for our river. He was pretty used to fishing sink lines in a lot of the places he fishes, the Madison and back home in Michigan. We really didn't do a lot of sinking lines on the South Fork just because the flow is so big and we're fishing out of boats. Typically our fish are going to be, a lot of times anyway, structure dwellers on the South Fork. They really like structure on the edge. And so by the time you put a sink tip against the bank, the current usually pulled that fly just right out of the zone. We did and do better with a vertically jigged bug, as Kelly has coined the term, on a floating line that drops and stays in there for a moment or two to get that ambush. Usually like doing 2 at a time, and then I'll flip it over. This will be probably our last one on the bottom. And just kind of judge how you want it. I'm going to tie it in right over the eyes, behind the cone. And this thing is definitely a torpedo, alright? I mean, pizzazz, done. So we had a little technical glitch there. Anyway, finished strapping that bottom piece of Marabou on there under those eyes. If you wanted to, you could fill a piece in there, but like I said, all this is going to blend anyway. Then flipped it over, put in our last clump of olive on there. And once again, this is just, there's no body material in the Mr.wiggles at all. Basically, it's just a two-toned Marabou jig. We showed you how to articulate it with the little trick with the cut in, I don't know, half or 1/3 up top bobbin threader. And then I just finished this one off with a little solar flare in pink. But anyway, the idea, one, is the articulation, just showing you an easier way to do that, a quicker way to do that. But this has, over the years, probably been my go-to pattern in the West for you know, streamers overall on a dry line, or otherwise known as, Kelly calls it in the new book, vertical jigging, which basically means that we are just putting a heavy fly on a dry line and hitting those spots. We're knocking on their door. We're opening the bedroom door where they live, and we're dropping this thing right in their face. The South Fork has a lot of structure-oriented fish. A lot of rivers do. The Missouri, anything that's got riprap or logs. You want that fly to get in there, knock on their door, get the reactionary bite, and not have the current sweep that sinking head or sinking line down. So this is the kind of stuff that we have used for years. You know, you can do whatever you want, but we articulate it just with the backing. That way we're getting a lot more kick. We put some extra weight on the front with the cone, and fish this with a loop knot, probably on 1X most of the time, sometimes as small as 3. And we're pounding those little pockets, giving it a little feed, maybe a couple mends up and down, keeping it in that kill zone as long as we can, and then bringing it out 1 or 2 and fire them back to the next one. So anyway, Mr.wiggles, I think originally inspired by, you know, the cool old dudes Uli and Burkholder and Eldon Barrett on the South Fork in the original Warrior, which was just a single hook version of this. And then Jason Pruitt's first one that showed me how to articulate, and he calls it the Wiggles. But a lot of big fish have came to this style, and especially this one. So appreciate you checking in with us, and we'll see you on the next go round. Jig it up.